I was just contacted by the bank 3 weeks ago. They said that they're selling my house here in the next like couple months and I just don't know what to do. Boom, red lights go off. And so this is just like everything. There's so many times where I see people like diving so deep into the weeds when it comes to creative finance with the sellers. I see people like absolutely scaring the seller off because they start going into their real estate jargon. And this is just sales, right? Sandler talks about this. If you guys haven't read You Can't Teach a Kid to Ride a Bike at a Seminar, I highly suggest you guys go read that. Sandler is the author of that book. He says, he's like, hey, in the beginning, there's a lot of salespeople who absolutely crush it. They do really good in the first like 30 to 60 days. Like they do really good. And it's typically the people who have no idea what's going on in that industry. If we're talking about wholesaling, it's the people that never done a deal before. They have no idea. They're wet behind the ears when it comes to real estate in general. They come into the industry, they hop on the phone with sellers for the first 30, 60 days, boom, contracts out of nowhere. And then all of a sudden, like the day 90 hits and they are like the experts of wholesaling. They are the experts of real estate. And then all of a sudden their deal flow goes south. Okay, this happens across all industries. Brand new people that don't know the industry will come in and absolutely crush it. And then all of a sudden day 90 hits and they hit a freaking plateau. Not even a plateau. They hit a freaking steep hill and they start to stink because they become experts in the industry. And you would think, wait, I thought being an expert was good. No, that's not good. If you're being an expert on the phone, you're probably, well, being an expert is obviously good. But if you're being like the real estate expert on the phone to the seller, then you're probably going to scare them with all your real estate jargon. And that's what Sandler's talking about. Sandler's talking about, hey, at day 90, all of a sudden they become the expert in the industry. And now they're talking all this crazy car jargon or real estate jargon or whatever, insurance jargon or whatever they're in. And they're scaring off the sellers. They're talking way too much about their product and they're not worrying about the problem like they were in the beginning of the prospect. And now their sales go south. So it's the same thing with when we're pitching creative finance. We'll start getting taught creative finance and we're like, oh my God, this is great. I know all the ins and outs. Like this is going to change the world. And then we'll hop on the phone with a seller and then we'll freaking vomit every single thing that we learned about subject to or novation agreements or seller finance to the seller. And the seller's like, dude, what the heck are you talking about? And you scare them away and you don't get the deal. So the way that you talk to the seller is just bringing it into their terms. Now, a lot of the times you might be talking to a real estate expert, right? Like actually, this was on a Blueprint Zoom. I called one of the agents. She picked up the phone and literally said, if you are trying to do a subject to deal, forget it. And I was like, oh, wait, this lady absolutely knows exactly what like is going on. She's hip to the thing. And we start talking about it. And me and that lady were able to have a conversation like real estate expert to real estate expert about subject tos and all the logistics of the transaction and stuff like that. We were able to do that because we were speaking the same language. I talk about this in the 8-step sale in the Blueprint sales training. I talk about speaking in the same language. You want to speak in the same language as a seller. But most people, they're not like super educated on creative finance, right? Like your average seller is not super educated on it. So when you're explaining it to them and going back to the 8-step sales process, this would be in fulfillment. So you're not scaring them right away. Oh my gosh, this is another thing I want to talk about. People will hear this, right? They'll hop on the phone with a seller. They'll say, hey, catch me up to speed. What's going on with the property? All of a sudden, the seller tells them, well, I was just contacted by the bank 3 weeks ago. They said that they're selling my house here in the next like couple months, and I just don't know what to do. Boom, red lights go off in our head. Every single investor is thinking, oh my God, this is subject to, pre-foreclosure, subject to. They don't even go through the sales process and all of a sudden they go right into pitching subject to. Oh my God, whoa, I can just come in and catch up the payments and I'll make the payments over time and I'll be the one that's in charge of making your mortgage payments. You won't have to worry about that anymore. And the seller's like, wait, what? What are you talking about? And then they're scared off. So before you pitch subject to or any creative finance strategy, go through the sales process completely until you hit step number 6. Once you hit step number 6, that's when you can get into your fulfillment and you could tell them how you could solve their problem. So when you're talking to the seller specifically about subject to, Here's the line that I like to use. Hey, Mr. Seller, so what if we could just come in and take the responsibility of the mortgage as it sits right now? Like, what if we can come in, take responsibility of the arrears? Actually, I wouldn't even say arrears. I would say the back payments, to keep it very simple. You see here, I'm keeping things very simple. Hey, Mr. Seller, what if I can come in and just take the responsibility of the back payments of 20 grand that we were talking about earlier, and the mortgage payments for the rest of the time that the loan is in place? And they're like, wait, you could do that? Yeah, why not? You got to think about this. Think about somebody that's listening to this that is going through financial struggle, that could be potentially about to go into foreclosure, right? Like, that's a scary sight. Hearing somebody just say, hey, I will take your responsibility completely off your plate, is much better than hearing somebody say, hey, what if I come in and I'll take your property over subject to the existing mortgage, where my name is now on the deed, your name is not on the deed. I'll hire a servicing company to make the payments. And the seller's like, whoa, what is going on? Because you're going into the weeds of everything. All you got to do is bring it to them very simple. Hey, what if I can come in and just take the responsibility of the back payments right now? I'll make those payments, and then I'll make the payments moving forward for the rest of the loan. And they're like, oh, that sounds really good. Can you do that? Yeah. Here's what ends up happening. Once that happens, then some questions start arising, right? Some questions start arising on their end. What if you don't make the payments? How is this transaction going to happen? That's when you go ahead and you handle those objections. And I'm going to handle those later on in the Zoom. But you don't got to talk about that right away, okay? Don't bring up problems for yourself if they haven't even rose yet.